Jesus' instructions to the disciples. Call to mission. The sun rises gently over the shores of the Sea of Galilee, its first rays caressing the peaceful waters. The air is charged with palpable tension, as if nature itself is holding its breath. We're at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, and that day, my dear friends, would mark the start of a spiritual revolution that would change the course of history. Imagine yourself there, among the crowd that has gathered. You can feel the excitement in the air, hear the whispers of anticipation. Jesus is there, surrounded by his 12 newly chosen disciples. Their faces reflect a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. They know their lives are about to change, but they're far from imagining just how much. But before we dive into Jesus' instructions, let's take a step back. How did these ordinary men become Jesus' disciples? It all began on these same shores, a few days earlier. Jesus was walking along the lake when he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen, simple, hard-working men who had probably never imagined a life beyond their nets and boats. Suddenly, Jesus approached them and spoke words that would change the course of their existence. "Come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people." Imagine the scene. Two fishermen, absorbed in their daily work, suddenly addressed by this man whose presence radiated authority and compassion. Peter and Andrew's reaction was as immediate as it was unexpected. The Gospel tells us that at once they left their nets and followed him. Can you imagine the impact of this decision, abandoning their livelihood, their security, everything familiar, to follow an itinerant preacher? What faith, what boldness. A little further on, Jesus saw two other brothers, James and John, sons of Zebedee. They were in a boat with their father preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and they too, without hesitation, left the boat and their father to follow him. Over the days, Jesus continued to call disciples, until there were 12. Let's take a moment to examine this diverse group. Simon Peter, an impulsive and passionate fisherman who would become the rock on which the church would be built. Andrew, Peter's brother, known for bringing people to Jesus, an evangelist at heart. James, son of Zebedee, a man with a fiery temper, nicknamed Son of Thunder. John, James' brother, later called the disciple whom Jesus loved, author of the gospel bearing his name. Philip, pragmatic and thoughtful man, always ready to ask pertinent questions. Bartholomew, also called Nathanael, a man in whom there is no deceit, refreshingly honest. Thomas, often called the doubter but also courageous and loyal, ready to die for Jesus. Matthew, a former tax collector, despised by many, but chosen by Jesus to write his gospel. James, son of Alphaeus, about whom little is known, but who would play a crucial role in the early church. Thaddeus, also called Jude, known for his question during the Last Supper, "Lord, why do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world?" Simon the Zealot, probably a former revolutionary, ready to overthrow Roman power by force. Judas Iscariot, the one who would eventually betray Jesus. Poignant reminder that even among those closest to Jesus, evil can creep in. What a disparate team. Fisherman, a tax collector, a zealot. Men who, under normal circumstances, probably would never have been friends or might even have hated each other. And yet, Jesus chose them, each with their strengths and weaknesses, to be his closest disciples. Let's now return to that crucial morning on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. Jesus gathers his 12 disciples around him. The atmosphere is electric. Everyone senses that something important is about to happen. Jesus begins to speak, his voice carrying far in the morning air. "Go and preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give." Imagine the impact of these words on the disciples. These men, who until recently were just simple fishermen or tax collectors, are now entrusted with a divine mission. They are called not only to preach, but also to perform miracles. Let's analyze these instructions. Go. It's a call to action. Faith is not passive. It pushes us out of our comfort zone. Preach. The disciples are called to proclaim the good news. They must share what they have learned from Jesus. The kingdom of heaven has come near. This is the heart of the message. God's reign is not a distant concept, but an imminent reality. Heal the sick. Raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. What an impressive list. Jesus gives his disciples the authority to perform miracles, thus demonstrating the power of the kingdom. Freely you have received, freely give. A reminder that everything they have received is a gift from God and must be freely shared with others. But Jesus doesn't stop there. He continues with more specific instructions. Do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts. No bag for the journey, or extra shirt or sandals, or a staff, for the worker is worth his keep. These words must have surprised the disciples. Jesus is sending them on a mission without any provisions. Why such an instruction? Trust in God. By leaving without provisions, the disciples had to learn to trust God to provide for their needs. Lightness. Without baggage, they could move quickly and focus entirely on their mission. Dependence on hospitality. This forced them to rely on the generosity of the people they met, thus creating bonds with local communities. Example of detachment. By living simply, they demonstrated that the kingdom of God does not depend on material wealth. Jesus doesn't hide from his disciples that their mission won't be easy. He warns them, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. What a striking image, sheep among wolves. Jesus doesn't promise his disciples an easy life. He prepares them to face opposition, even persecution. But notice the wisdom of his advice. As shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Jesus calls his disciples to combine wisdom with innocence. Jesus continues by preparing them for the reality of persecution. You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. These words must have been difficult for the disciples to hear. Hated? Because of Jesus? But Jesus isn't trying to discourage them. On the contrary, he's preparing them for the reality of their mission. He wants them to understand that following Christ comes at a cost. However, amidst these warnings, Jesus also offers words of encouragement. So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. And then, Jesus gives them this comforting assurance. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. Jesus never claimed that following in his footsteps would be easy. In fact, he was very clear about the challenges his disciples would face. His words echo through the centuries. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. What does take up your cross mean in our modern context? It's not an invitation to martyrdom, but rather a call to place God's priorities above our own. It might mean giving up personal ambitions to serve others, standing up for truth and justice even when it's unpopular, or dedicating time and resources to the cause of the kingdom, sometimes at the expense of our comfort. Jesus continues by saying, For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What a paradox. Jesus is telling us that to truly live, we must be ready to lose our life for him. It's a call to a life of self-giving, service, and sacrificial love. As we reflect on these instructions Jesus gave to his disciples, what can we draw from them for our lives today? We are all called. Perhaps we're not called to leave everything behind like the first disciples, but we are all called to follow Jesus and share his message of love. Faith requires action. Jesus said, go. Our faith must translate into concrete actions in our daily lives. How can we go in our context? God provides. Just as Jesus assured his disciples that God would provide for their needs, we can trust that God will take care of us when we serve him. The message is urgent. The kingdom of heaven has come near, was the disciples' message. Even today we are called to share the urgency of the gospel. We have received freely. Everything we have is a gift from God. How can we share it generously with others? Persecution is real. Even today many Christians face opposition and persecution. How can we support our brothers and sisters who suffer for their faith? God cares for us. If God cares even for sparrows, how much more does he care for us? This should give us courage in the face of challenges. As the sun rises higher in the Galilean sky, Jesus concludes his instructions. The disciples look at each other, a mixture of excitement and apprehension in their eyes. They know their lives will never be the same again. And you, dear listener, as we conclude this exploration of Jesus' instructions to his disciples, how do you feel called? Perhaps not to go without purse or bag, but certainly to live your faith more boldly and confidently. Remember, Jesus' call is not reserved for a spiritual elite. It's a call for each of us. We are all invited to participate in this great adventure of God's kingdom. May the grace and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you as you go out on mission in your own Galilee. Don't forget, you are loved with an infinite love, called to an extraordinary life, and equipped to make a difference in this world. As we conclude this exploration of Jesus' instructions to his disciples, we can't help but wonder, how did these ordinary men react to this extraordinary call? How did they live out these instructions in practice? That's precisely what we'll discover in our next video. We'll follow in the footsteps of the 12 disciples as they set out on their first mission. We'll see the challenges they faced, miracles they performed, and the lessons they learned. Get ready for an exciting adventure as we dive into the account of the sending of the 12. We'll explore how their experience can shed light on our own faith journey and our mission in today's world. Don't miss this crucial episode in our series on the Gospel of Matthew. See you soon for the continuation of this extraordinary story. Before we part, let's take a moment to reflect on the legacy left by these 12 ordinary men who responded to Jesus' extraordinary call. Think about it for a moment. These fishermen, tax collectors, and other common folk became the pillars of the early church. Their testimony and dedication laid the foundation for a movement that would transform the world. Peter, the impetuous fisherman, became the rock on which the church was built. John, the beloved disciple, left us profound writings on God's love. Matthew, the former tax collector, wrote the gospel we're studying. And the others? Although we have less information about them, tradition tells us they traveled far and wide, sharing Jesus' message. Thomas is said to have reached India, Andrew Greece, Bartholomew Armenia. But their greatest legacy is not in their individual accomplishments. It's in how they lived out Jesus' instructions, transforming their faith into action, their love into service. They remind us that God doesn't call the qualified, qualifies the called. He takes ordinary men and women and uses them to accomplish the extraordinary. And this legacy is passed down to us today. We are the spiritual heirs of these first disciples. Their call is our call. Their mission is our mission. As we close this session, I invite you to reflect. Which aspect of the disciples' call inspires you the most? How can you live out this legacy in your daily life? What net is God asking you to leave behind to follow him more fully? Remember, just like the disciples, you're not alone in this adventure. The same Jesus who called Peter, John, and the others is calling you today. He promises to be with you, guide you, and to strengthen you. As you leave here, carry with you these words of Jesus. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. May these words resonate in your heart and inspire you to live out your call as a disciple of Jesus Christ fully. Until next time, dear friends, to continue together this fascinating exploration of the Gospel of Matthew.